Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Jess Marshall Podcast. This week, I've got a very special guest straight out of the heart of West Texas, Emma Coffman. She's a Texas A&M graduate, and she is a agriculture technology rep. We're going to talk a bunch about how technology is revolutionizing agriculture, ranching, the way we produce, especially our beef. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Talk to you after. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Jess Marshall Podcast. Wow. Mark that swipe. Bring it.
So now I do print work. So
Okay.
I take pictures of things, especially cattle or live agricultural stuff, and I keep my camera in my truck when I travel. And then if someone's interested in a print, then I just
You drive
get
a
'em.
truck, not like a Subaru Forester or
hell no.
something?
My personal truck's a diesel, and she stays in the
Well, hell
parking
yeah.
spot most of the time.
Yeah.
And then my company gives me a rig that I can just clock personal mileage on.
Yeah.
And it's a little gas truck. They pay everything on it. So
What's
it makes
that diesel? A Chevy or a Ford?
Ford.
What are you doing?
I actually
You didn't want to drive in a Suzu diesel like I do?
my work truck's a Chevy, and I hate it.
Why?
It drives like an aluminum can. I do not
Those
like it.
there's no headroom in Chevrolets either,
No.
even though George Strait says there is. You're too young
he's
to remember
short.
this, but when they redid the Silverado, this is probably 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
George Strait was doing all the ads, and he was like, "What I like most about this new Silverado is I can wear my hat in the truck while I'm
That's
driving."
bull, because I go like this.
So
and
I'm saying,
Yeah.
I know, I do too.
You
I
just have a really small head.
I'm always hitting or if I look around, the bill of my hat will hit
Yeah.
like the visor or whatever. But I've gotten burned by Ford so many times that I
Really?
just,
See,
yeah.
I've had the exact opposite luck. I've had
It's because
nothing but great experience with Fords.
what's that liter size on that Ford? That's that new one.
No, mine's a 17.
Oh, wow, 5 years old?
Yeah.
So what is it, a
It's
6.2?
It's a 5.7.
5.7. So remember when they went from the 7.3 Power Stroke? You probably grew up around those. That's what I had. Single cab,
Yeah.
vinyl bench seats,
Yeah.
white, no 4-wheel drive, 8-foot bed. Awesome truck. And then I went and got another one. I sold that one. I went and got another one, 7.3, cab and a half. I'm in college. Thought I was hot shit then.
Oh, of
7.3 again. I was like, awesome. Then I'm like, kind of tired of this. I want a gray one. I put it on somewhere to sell it, and I was getting crazy offers, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then I found out, well, they're done with the
changed it,
7.3, and everyone was buying them and taking them to South America. So I had like 100,000 miles on that,
Yeah.
and I sold it for like $6,000 more than I bought it new for.
There you go.
But then
That's kind of how diesel trucks are when that chip shortage happened. I got offered 10 more than I paid for it, and I was like, I can't because I've got trailers I got to haul.
Right.
But it's the same
and you can't
thing.
replace it with anything.
No.
I don't think I would buy anything right now anyways, although I've had car guys on here and they're like, no, you'll be fine. Warranty, you'll be fine. I'm like, no, man, I buy sneakers now and the shit's falling apart. I'm waiting.
That's right. That's right. They don't make them like they used to.
No.
That's for darn sure.
No.
It's even tractors, those John Deere tractors, are all plastic parts
Yeah.
and light metal versus, like aluminum almost, versus the heavy duty parts. And
So you're over here telling me they don't make them like they used to.
absolutely. No, it was 87, 88s. Those were good.
Knew there was something I liked about you. I agree. I grew up dairy farming, so we have
Okay.
a good
Oh,
amount
yeah.
in common. But there's just something about that old school diesel smell, the farm diesel smell too. I smell
Yeah.
that. I'm like, oh heck yeah. I don't know, man. The truck game's a weird one because the new Fords when they got sideways with me, I had a fleet for my company, and literally they were in the shop more than they were on the road. Finally, I was just like, I've had it. I have had it.
That's it. That's like a Sundowner, the horse trailers.
Yeah.
If you get the 2000 to 2005, I think models, you have to be careful because the floor would bottom out because they took out.
the fuck?
Yeah, they took out the amount of cross beams they put underneath the trailer, and so
Just to save money.
save money
Yeah.
and make them lighter. That was the big thing. Everyone wanted a light trailer, and so they got a bad connotation and reputation because of that. And so then they went ahead and redid everything, and now Sundowner is one of the more reputable brands again. But there was a time where they tried to keep that profit margin, grow it out a little bit, and people did not like it. So
Well, that the new Power Stroke, the little one when the 7.3 went out. So that's probably but that's before your time. I'm talking like 08, 9, 10, somewhere in there.
yeah.
It was pretty much Ford owns Cummins. They own the Cummins diesel engine that's in all the Rams. The new one, when the government told them that the 7.3 was too bad on emissions, so they made it, Obama proof or approved or whatever.
Yeah.
That was an International. International was making those, and it was just the glow plugs would go out,
Everything.
the water pump would go out. You'd be rolling coal at like 15
A lot of
miles
people
an
had
hour.
exhaust issues, transmission
Massive.
issues. Yeah,
You have a 17, so you don't have to put DEF in it.
I do.
Do you? When did that start? 6, 14, or 15,
Something
probably.
like that. Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
Mine I put DEF in.
When Barack Hussein was running things, right? That's when that all went down.
Yeah. That
Um,
whole movement.
so where are you from? You're from Temple?
North of Temple. Yeah.
Central Texas? Right on.
Stone's throw from here.
You grew up with animals, around animals, loving animals?
Around it.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of people around us were older and their kids were just kind of waiting for them to die off, not really at home. Well, I mean, really, because the developers were coming in. So
Sure.
we're so close to Austin. People from Austin were slowly moving out towards our direction. So the price of farmland was going up because these people wanted to develop it. So the kids were like, all right, go ahead and die so that way we can sell the land. And so because I was the opposite, I was more for land conservation, just because you can't make more land. You can make a lot of things, but land's not one of them.
Where'd you get that perspective?
Common sense. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I'm an old soul. I was told
Yeah.
I was born the wrong gender and 20 years too late. And it's just, I mean, think about it just from a food standpoint. We're making our livestock bigger, but you can't get them too big. We realize that
Right.
with turkeys, right? We screw the pooch on that one. And so just from sustainability in terms of feeding, look at China. China cannot feed themselves. They have to get food from other places, which is they get from a large part of their beef. They're our third largest export for
Yeah.
beef products.
Yeah.
And so
Crops too,
Yeah.
corn, soy, etc.
well, and that's the thing. We were talking about that earlier, is that as of yesterday, October 31st, that Russia at first said, yes, we will allow grain exports out of Ukraine. They pulled back out of that yesterday. So if you look at the grain markets, they are all over the place. Well, China also pulled a little switcheroo too. They were going to buy a pretty large percentage of our cotton exports. They backed out of that deal. So cotton's all over the place, grain's all over the place. We are having an issue from the drought standpoint of even being able to feed our own cattle and people. People's not really going to be that much of an issue, but it's going to take a long time to recover from this drought because all your byproducts, nothing got all those seeds, unless you had a way of irrigating your crops, they never got to germinate.
I don't think a lot of people understand how severe this drought's been.
It's
When does it
bad.
stretch back to when it started, if you will?
I'd say about 2008 was and 2011, especially 2011, was a really bad drought. And it took about 2 to 3 years for us to recover from that, because you can't just have a slew of rain, right? You have to have good rain, steady rain, but enough rest period where that water can filter back through the ground and be soaked up. That's the problem with these hard rains is, yeah, it's great to see 2, 3, 4 inches, but if you get that day after day after day, all it's going to do, the ground can't, it's like a sponge, it can't soak up
Right.
anymore, so it just goes into runoff, which there's different water systems to collect runoff water anyways, but for this drought, I would say probably fall of last year going into this year, and then it's just especially of the summer. The drought is, the lack of rainfall is one issue. High temperatures and no cloud cover, you're frying whatever's out in pasture.
Yeah.
that's the other big issue, was that it's nice, even though we're not having as much rainfall as we wish we could right now, because there's cooler weather and cloud cover. It's not just baking like it was during the summer.
Sure. So you're growing up, you're looking around, you're having these like realizations on your own. Mm-hmm. So you don't come from like farming lineage?
No, well, we had a place out in West Texas. We got a whole family heritage place out there, but no, my dad grew up in Lubbock. They did some beekeeping and things like that, but his mom moved out there and then just kind of stayed in Lubbock, and then my parents got hitched and they traveled a little bit and then came back down. But
Hitched.
Came from a heavy agricultural, it's passion for sure, and then community. But in terms of like our last name in the cattle industry doesn't mean anything. We had a few head. I mean, they've got really cool books from 100-something years ago, breakdown reports of how many head were on feed, what was bought, what was sold. I mean, volumes of bound books. It's at my grandparents' place, and they live in Louisiana now. But so we've got an understanding for it, but as we didn't have anything like a big feedlot or anything like that.
So when you were in high school, did you already have dialed in like what you wanted to do with your life, what you wanted to study in college, all that?
When I was a kid, I knew I wanted to stay in ag, and then so Texas A&M.
That's just reasonably unusual.
I guess. I was always passionate.
You're special.
Ed, yes, but no. So Texas A&M has the AgriLife Extension Services, and one program that they offer through Texas 4-H. 4-H is a fantastic program.
Yeah,
I think everyone should be having their kids involved with.
Up. You bet.
And it's not just animals. That's the big misconception. Is that, I mean, it's anywhere from public speaking to art, leather work, and welding. I mean, anything you can do. Highly recommend to be
useful
in that program.
shit.
Very.
Skills.
Life skills.
Yeah.
Life skills.
Novel concept.
Interview skills, things that record bookkeeping skills, things that will set you so far ahead in a plethora of ways compared to those who just went to a brick and mortar school and then were team captain of the volleyball team. Okay, congratulations, but you're scared and you're petrified to talk to someone.
Or change a tire.
You can't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so they have this thing called the Livestock Ambassador Program. And what you have to do is you have to apply, do like a whole multiple essays, kind of like a college application.
Okay.
Then if you get accepted, you then do a crash course for a week at either Texas Tech or A&M, depending on where you live. And you have to, I mean, it's a crash course. I mean, there was notes that I was referencing back to when I was in college taking those courses. And then you have a exam you have to take, and you have to get like an 80-85% passing rate in order to stay in the program. Then what you do is it's agriculture advocacy. So we would teach the general public about agriculture, where their food comes from. We go to Kroger, we go to county fairs, we go to all sorts of events, all the big majors like Houston, Fort Worth, things like that. And you'd have to have a certain amount of hours to stay in the program. And so that's where I knew I wanted to go to A&M, was from that program itself. And then taking all those courses, I'm like, this is right up my alley. So I did animal science at A&M, and it's a passion. You know, I could be making a lot more money doing a lot of different things, but this, I don't feel like it's a job. I always heard, do what you love, you don't work a day in your life. And yeah, there's days that you're like, this is a job.
Right.
But for the most part, I wake up every day and I get to do something different. I get to talk to people, help people save money, be more efficient, and really I'm helping keep the world fed.
Yeah.
Because without agriculture, you're naked, homeless, and hungry.
Yeah.
So,
is it true that Texas is one of the only states where you can buy non-USDA products from producers? And because I do that, I buy from a producer out of Paducah. Yeah.
Yep.
And all grass-fed. Which there's obviously diverging science on whether or not that matters. Maybe we can get into that in a minute. But why is that? Why is Texas one? Because it's Texas, which is
I don't think
badass.
Texas is the only state.
No, it's like there's like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah,
I guess.
it depends on who your governor is. And then honestly,
Sohill, look that up.
yeah.
What states allow you to buy non-USDA. Let's just put in there beef. What's USDA stand for?
United States Department of Agriculture.
Yeah.
And so
They just want to control everything?
well, it becomes a food quality concern. So we were talking about this earlier, was that the USDA, we have such high standards for food safety that other countries are willing to pay us for byproducts that we don't use very much. Japan is our number 1 export. Korea is number 2. China is number 3.
Wow.
Number 4, you know which country that is? Mexico.
No shit.
Mexico. And so
When you say byproducts, what do you mean?
liver, tongue,
Yeah.
eyeballs. 99% of that beef carcass gets utilized.
All the byproduct
Yep.
that doesn't necessarily get
Well, they
carved
take
up
tongue and they'll
sold off.
slice it
Yeah.
really, really thin. And so it's a delicacy over there.
Right.
And they're willing to pay for it. The knuckle, which is the tougher part of the sirloin, that one we don't really eat very much here. And that one's growing popularity in Taiwan. And so it's interesting that these other countries. All right, so Costco back in 2019, I'm not sure if they're still rated this way. They were the world's 6th largest retail store. In Korea, in Taiwan, 90% of the beef products on their shelves came from the United States. The rest of it probably Australia.
Damn.
Our food safety and flavor, tenderness, right? All that intermuscular seam fat. We just have a really high quality product. But now we're looking at, we're worried about Taiwan and China, that relationship. So now we're looking at South America and maybe doing some more exports down there.
Okay.
So we just have a very high standard of food safety. So there's this act called the Cool Country of Origin Labeling.
Okay.
So when you buy a meat product, it has to say what country that came from. If you buy meat from Mexico, they don't have the same standards of sterilization and food safety. We were talking about this earlier, that if a carcass comes in and it's got abscesses all over it, it's just not a good carcass. It's unsafe for any food, whether it's human or animal consumption. They condemn it, and it goes into a locker that's chain locked, and only the USDA agent on site has access into that meat locker. So having a USDA certified person on site think about it, because if another country, they don't have those same standards of food safety, but that carcass comes in, they're like, oh, we can feed it to dogs, no one's going to care. Oh, we could grind that product up and probably cut bits and pieces of it and put it into ground beef. They're not going to know. So that's why we have such a high rating for food safety, is because of the USDA certification and going through all that process to make sure those carcasses are appropriate for human consumption.
Interesting. When the cold hit in early 2020 and everything shut down everywhere, was that ag still deemed essential?
Yes.
Did you have to sit on the sidelines
No.
running your job, or you still you just couldn't see other people or
Yep.
other people who were concerned about the cold?
Well, and then I ran, so I was at A&M still at the time when it first hit, and I was working over at the sheep unit, and the sheep and cattle unit, and we were still deemed necessary. So they tried to make us wear masks. I mean, we're outside, so telling cattle or any sort of ag producer to do something as inefficient as that,
Right.
we laugh.
Yeah.
We've got all the immunity we can possibly have.
Right.
So, yeah, it's we still kept on chucking. The problem was when the plants started, like Tyson, Cargill, the harvesting plants started closing down.
The harvesting
for a
and
few
the
days.
Processing, meat packaging, etc.
It got backed up. Those packers, it got backed up not because they didn't want to keep their doors open, but because so many people were out sick that they didn't have enough people on the kill floor to harvest and make cuts on those animals. So that was where supply issue kind of happened was then you have all these feedlots like, crap, we've got to hold these cattle for another 90 days. That's a long time.
What do you have to do then if you've got them all ready to roll for slaughter? What are you backing them back off
Yep,
and leaning them up and then getting them all ready again?
Try to keep them at maintenance, and that's hard to do.
But does that fuck up those ranchers' cash flow big
Oh,
time?
absolutely, because then you get cuts on the deal. So then they say a carcass is too big. The yield grade, that's what the issue is. That yield grade goes down. So it's the cutability of that carcass because there's so much extra fat. They cut a lot of that off. That yield grade is not, that percentage is not as high as it was 90 days ago.
What is that 90 days of extra age on that animal doing to the flavor of the product, the overall texture, etc.?
Depends on what they're feeding them. If you pasture fed them for the last 30, 90, however long days, you're going to lose some of that flavor, tenderness. Fat is a big indication of flavor, which is a highly desirable trait. That's why the Wagyu and the Akahushi markets have taken off so much, is because of that flavor and that tenderness. But it wouldn't do it as bad. It depends. Again, it depends on how long you're having to hold them out on. And then what you're feeding them. If you're keeping them in the lot and continuously feeding them silage and a ration, or are you putting them out to wheat pasture? What are you doing with those cattle? But it depends on what you're feeding them and then how long they're out there.
So I'm 40. I'm in my early 40s. What am I? I think I'm 43. So tech was not a part of my life when I was in high school. It barely became a part of my life when I was in college. I think I got an email address when I was like a junior or a senior. You had to go to like the computer science
AOL,
lab to do all your stuff and check your email and everything. But you're of the age that tech's always been a part of your life, right? Social media, etc.
Yeah.
When you are understanding the value of land, understanding the value of renewable resources, etc., and you decided you wanted to study animal sciences, could you foresee that the data capture needs were there in terms of when I was growing up, we had spiral notebooks and we kept all our records on spiral notebooks. In fact, on the almost infomercial or testimonial on your company website, you have all these ranchers in there talking about we're keeping records, we got to put it in the computer 3 times, etc. They're looking at yield, they're trying to keep track of rainfall, all this data. You guys have centralized that, but when you were younger, could you recognize that was going to be something that was coming or that was necessary? No?
No. So I grew up right when we had a box TV.
Yeah.
We had a phone with the landline with the rotary phone. My first phone was a flip phone held together by duct tape in middle school. The razors and the slides, you were cool. You were cool if you had that. So the iPhones and the iPods didn't start coming out till I was mid to late middle school. I think I got my first iPhone when I was like a senior in high school, something like that. So I was still in the age where I remember everything pre-social media, like MySpace.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
If you had a MySpace, you were just awesome. My parents are absolutely not. And so you
didn't have a secret MySpace
set
up there, Emma?
No. See, my mama was in the Army and she was intelligence. There was no sneaking around.
Plus, God knows.
God knows.
God knows if you're.
Yeah, my dad liked to think he
about-
was God sometimes.
Yeah.
So I was petrified to disobey my parents. And I did it a few times and got kindly reminded why I shouldn't.
Didn't work out?
No, not at
Yeah.
all. Not back when disciplining your kids was still expected out of parents.
Yeah, you're
But-
not supposed to do that now.
No,
You
which I think is half
drive
the
around,
problem,
there's
but-
a Montessori school on every corner. I guess we just let them raise themselves.
Yeah. I got kicked out of one of those when I was a
Did
kid.
you?
I did. I did not like the chaos that was going on. I started telling kids how to play with their toys, and they did not appreciate that.
Yeah.
But no, the technology thing, I still, before I had this job, did everything by notebook, text message, Excel, and it's a pain. It is inaccurate, and it's not efficient at all. And so my argument to people is when they say, well, I've got a notebook and this is how we've always done it. Well, that's the most expensive phrase you have in agriculture.
Yep.
We've always done it this way. And I know that technology is sometimes intimidating. I know there's a lot of security questions and concerns. So we try to address those the best we can, saying, hey, you know, we can't legally sell your data. We really don't want to sell your data. There's no benefit to us. Think about it. If you have a 1,500 head yard, what data am I going to want? 1,500 head or the 50, 60,000 head operation that they turn cattle over every week, every day? So explaining that to producers, but it's like your phone. You know, the BlackBerry, we were like, oh my gosh, this thing's got internet. And then you go to the iPhone, it's like, there's no buttons. How do I know this is going to work?
Right.
And then now you're like, oh, here's an airdrop. Here's this. Yeah. So bringing accuracy and efficiency into cattle operations, because every pound of ingredient, especially now with the drought and the commodity issues, every pound counts. It has a numeric and financial value associated with that. So our job is to help you accurately capture that and accurately track how efficient your cattle are so you can make better decisions.
How many of the old school ranchers are maybe still do or were before they met you and started using what you help with, or just eyeballing everything, and they're just like, well, my dad and my dad's dad, they all did that, and then they don't even realize how much is being wasted, how much is falling through between the cracks, all that.
Or even their employees, or even people that run their own businesses, and they are the ones feeding every day. So how it tracks is there's a Bluetooth scale head that talks to an iPad or an iPhone. So every pound of ingredients gets accounted for and then gets split out depending on how your pens are and how many lots of cattle are in each pen, and then it breaks it down in the system. So they'll call me, or I'll call them about 2 weeks after they've been on the program, just say, hey, just making sure you're good. I don't know if I want to kiss you or punch you. I say, what does that mean? Well, I want to kiss you because I realize how much money is being thrown away. And now I'm more accurately feeding, but also accurately knowing what to charge, especially for custom feeders. He goes, but I want to punch you because I've been doing this for X amount of years, and I don't even want to think about how much money I've lost. And you do not get into the cattle business to be rich. So when you got custom feeders and you're charging those guys X amount of pound or X amount of dollars for feed, if you're off 50, 20 pounds per feeding twice a day for 2,500 head of cattle, within 3 days, you're got yourself in quite the hole.
Explain what a custom feeder is to our viewers and listeners who don't understand that or aren't familiar.
Yeah, so a custom feeder is if I own a feedlot, so I've got pens and you've got calves that you need to be fed, but you don't have the infrastructure to feed them out. What you do is you send your cattle to me, and then I charge you on a per day basis. Then there's different ways to charge people. So I can either charge them for a feed or a daily charge, depending on how that operation wants to set it up. But basically, I feed your cattle for you. I take care of them. I manage them. I'm basically the babysitter, the nanny, and you're just gone, right? And I send you an invoice, and I send you how efficient your cattle are being, and I send you medical invoices. So now this system is a lot more accurate with that, and then also I know how much to charge you too.
So that I can just focus on my core competency, which is just breeding and producing new calves.
Yep. Or guys that just buy weaned calves, and then, or not even weaned, just straight pulled calves.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I send them to you, and then sell them to the packer from there. So, or send them to a finisher. There's several different avenues that you can go down with that.
As someone who's in the business, but who's also aware of media trends, etc., things like the Beyond Burger at Burger King, all of this bullshit, fake food. Is the demand for, let's just talk beef specifically, is the demand worldwide for beef specifically up? Yes. And is that directly indicative of increase in population, or are the same people eating more beef than they used to, or are you seeing that level off, decline? What are you seeing?
I think it's both, a little bit of both. Population and higher demand of beef products. The Beyond Beef is a very interesting conversation.
They're Beyond Nuggets now too.
Well,
you want to give
they're
those a
shutting
shot?
down.
Yeah.
They're shutting down one of the main plants of that because they are at the lowest stock market wise. They're at the lowest they've ever been, and that was a week ago. I haven't even looked at it this week.
Well, those people who are eating all that Beyond this and Beyond that are probably beyond life now because they're putting so much fake bullshit into their systems.
It is. You gotta, I mean, and we were talking about this earlier too, is you have to have accurate education and knowledge of where your food comes from to make the best decisions to what put into your body. And those Beyond Beef ones, they were trying to appeal to a certain, so there's a big movement of anti-beef, anti-agriculture. And so the number one thing I always hear is, oh, well, the environmental this, environmental that. It's like, well, actually, agriculture accounts for less than 10% of greenhouse gas emissions, and beef cattle alone are less than 2%. Industry and finances, I know you are not on Wikipedia.
I don't think that's
No,
wiki.
it's the EPA, but it's 16% methane.
Okay.
So that's
well, you gotta look at the date when that was released. This is data that was released Monday.
That you just stated.
Is that I'm quoting, yeah. So that was from Texas Cattle Feeders Association, which mainly covers New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma. We feed 28% of the United States cattle.
Wow. Damn.
And that's just
That's a
members.
number.
That's just members of TCFA.
Okay.
That's not even the people that aren't members. So those 1,500,
significant.
2,500, yeah. So the TCFA, we had our annual convention Monday last week, and that's when we went over all these things. And I was telling them that since 1996, per animal, beef-wise, has gone up 67%. So basically what I'm saying is that we have put 67% more pounds or more food on the plate per head than previously.
Wow.
Frame score, and there's a lot of cuttability, better genetics, better feeding, a lot better nutrition programs. But
so you're getting more out of every
Mm-hmm.
out of every cow than you used to get out of them.
Yep.
Because you're literally trimming the fat on the systems, processes, protocols of what it takes to get that cow born and get that cow all the way through to where it's harvested, packaged, and sold.
It starts in the uterus. So fetal programming is basically, and we're still educating. So I was in livestock nutrition before this.
Sweet.
So I had this conversation all the times. Fetal programming is based on the condition of that cow. We are trying to maximize her genetic potential and the sire's genetic potential for that fetus. If she is like me, right, pretty thin, scored, then she's barely feeding herself, much less a fetus. So all those her energy is going to her first, fetus second. Now, if she had more cover on her, so body condition score 6 out of 9, body condition score 6, 6.5. Now we're putting a lot more emphasis on funneling that nutrition to that fetus. So we're maximizing that genetic potential. Once that animal, I think it's the last 95, 100 days, something like that time frame, that's the max potential that calf will have for intramuscular and seam fat capabilities down the road. And so implants are a big topic, and it's a super helpful tool because not only are we reducing the amount of time that animal's on feed, less water, less feed, less, if you want to say methane emission, sure, go ahead. But so we're trying to put on the pounds faster so we can keep that beef animal running through the system.
When the woke agenda of whether it's Bill Gates or whoever telling everybody, I think Bill Gates actually said, so you can maybe find this, my hero, Bill Gates, totally, my mentor in life.
Yeah, for sure.
That developed countries, especially our country, should just stop beef intake altogether as like a favor to the rest of the planet. Yeah. Did you guys see a dip in demand at all?
No. So,
and I know we're talking Texas, and I know Texas is like its own country.
I'm talking nationally.
But yeah, you're seeing national numbers. You're not seeing any drop off at all.
Last year, our export
Yeah, stop eating meat and buying big houses.
should take his own
So it's
advice.
saying he
Yeah.
said
Maybe you should stop flying your private planes.
Well, I don't know. You know, it looks like that diet of Beyond Nuggets
Oh, yeah,
and
look
Beyond
at
Burgers
those.
is
Beyond
really,
Beef, that's
yeah. That's a physique right there. That is a
quite the
man
dad
in
bod.
his prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They,
What a
um,
savage.
Well, the headline's looking like he's saying the opposite. Like that's not. That's confusing.
Says telling people to stop. Says telling them will never solve climate change.
Yeah, well,
Can't read the
no
rest.
kidding.
Paywall.
No, last year just beef cattle. Our export market was we did $10 billion worth of business. 10.5. Just in 2022, up to this point, it is $12 billion.
Okay.
So the demand is higher, and for the first time ever, we've had our U.S. dollar value is higher than meat tonnage. So basically, people are willing to pay more overseas.
Right.
They're willing to pay more for our product. I mean, you used to talk about the Beyond Beef deal. You've seen that picture of COVID during COVID that rather than the meat part of this, I'm not sure if it was a Kroger or what, but every beef animal product was completely gone, and that Beyond Beef was fully stocked.
No, I haven't seen that,
Yeah.
but I believe you.
Well,
Yeah.
and people have realized that it tastes better. Beef does.
Oh yeah.
It's better for you. So, and that's the other thing is, there she is right there, that big one.
That's a good one.
Look at that.
I can hit up Uber Eats if you want to do a taste test.
Absolutely not.
You
Yeah.
sure?
Beyond Beef is un-American, in my opinion.
I totally agree. I just don't understand how making something in a factory seems to anyone like it's going to be better for you than making than something that's
Marketing.
Yeah, but
That's
it's also the virtue signaling of how farming and ranching is somehow bad for the environment and somehow immoral, and that's such fucking bullshit.
It is bullshit. And unfortunately, it's a very difficult conversation to have because I am now logically trying to battle something that's in your mind from emotional. Like, look at the Humane Society,
Right.
who do not recommend supporting. But anyway, their commercials. Remember the old commercials of the sad country music and the poor little dog shaking in the cage?
Sarah McLachlan,
Yes.
right? Yeah, in the eyes of the angel.
Yes. So
Remember that?
how do I have to do 8 times the work to battle one little misunderstanding. So PETA is a mastermind behind this, and I do have to hats off to their marketing team. They do a fantastic way of doing this in their own twisted way. The videos that they release of animals not being treated humanely,
Yeah,
most of them aren't in the United States.
really.
Most of those are international countries 20 years ago. They released one, I think it was with sheep or a beef animal. I think it was a beef animal. It was a dairy cow that was being run through. That was in Mexico because I had been to that plant before. That was in Mexico. Wow. And if you find the original footage, it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I believe that.
Again, talking about the USDA and things, that animal has to be mobile prior to slaughter. They have to have free access to water. They have to physically be healthy before we can incorporate them into the meat system.
As a younger person, what do you think is behind all of this? What's motivating this agenda to get people to stop?
Public education systems.
Yeah.
At
But what's the
100%.
point? Just to weaken us physically?
Well, think about it. There's 2 ways to control the world's or a nation's population: fear and hunger. Fear, they tried that with COVID. States like Texas, Florida, we said, up yours, no, we're not doing that. But so that didn't work. But they wanted to see how long we could get people to follow the carrot before they lost interest, right?
Yeah.
So there's one. The other one is now food. So if we can limit, or we can basically increase the price of food, now we can control what you can buy because you can't afford to buy certain things. And so it's pretty interesting from an economic standpoint as well of where the government's going with this. And like Biden shutting down the pipeline, there's a big push for electric cars. Why is there a big push for electric cars? It's not environmental. the government can give two shits about the environment.
Yeah, I mean,
They want to control where you can go.
Sure.
How long? Look at California.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to buy a diesel vehicle. You're not allowed to buy a gas vehicle, but you can buy electric, but you can't charge it.
You can only charge it for so long. Also, where are they going to put all the windmill arms and all the batteries from all the Teslas when they wear out?
Yep.
Those are sitting in the ground somewhere out in East Texas or New Mexico.
Or in the ocean, or
Like,
just dumping it off.
Is that environmentally conducive?
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, it just doesn't make any sense when you walk it all the way through mentally. It makes no sense. So if you eat this fake food, you're probably going to live 15 years less.
Yep.
You're probably going to have no energy.
Just food itself in general is not nearly as healthy as it used to be.
Sure.
And so why? Well, big corporations. I think there's 4 or 5 major companies that own all the smaller, like
Big
the Little Debbie,
conglomerates.
Names that you know. And so if I can substitute something for a synthetic or a cheaper product and still keep the same price or increase it, well, I just made my profit margin double than what it used to be. I don't give a crap if you don't live past 52.
Right.
If I can get you to buy my product still and it costs me half as much, it's just straight economic. It's unethical as all get out, but that's...
Well, if I can get you sick eating that stuff that you
Big Pharma, that's another conversation.
Hooked on, then bang, I've got you as a lifelong customer of Big Pharma too.
I'm on no medications. I'm on no pills, no nothing. I hardly go to the doctor unless I absolutely have to. My stepmom is Mexican, so all the creepy, like, oh, drink this at midnight on a full moon. I mean, that's her. But understanding your body too. I mean, a lot of people are on medications, not because it's helping them, but it's keeping them sick to keep repeat customers. If you cure people, then they're not going to come back. And so it's really interesting. Just take 25, 30 years ago, compare that to today. Just look at economics then versus now. Sure, there's a lot of good things that have happened, right? Growth of technology, expansion of education, but even look at the education system itself. So there's a book I'm reading called The Battle for the American Mind.
It's a great book.
Yes.
Yep.
And talking about taking God out of the education system. And now we are incorporating this whole, I'm sorry, there's no first grader or second grader that needs to be reading a transgenderism or gay sex book. I'm sorry. There's actually, I'm not sorry. There's absolutely no reason for it. Our school, growing up, we didn't even have sex ed until like 4th or 5th grade. And you had to have your parents sign off on it.
How old are you in 4th or 5th grade?
I have no idea.
10?
I was already, well...
I guess when you're in 8th grade, you're what, 12, turning 13 to be a freshman?
Something like that, yeah. Because you graduate, you're about 17 or 18, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think sex ed for us was around maybe 11, 12 years old, something like that.
And I already kind of knew how things worked. I mean, A for apple, B for bread, okay? Emma didn't draw a loaf of bread. I drew 2 horses mounting each other, and I hope to God my dad still has that picture because I want that sucker framed. And Dad proudly taped that on the cabinet, and every time we had Friday night, Saturday night football, my dad goes to our preacher. He's like, that's what my daughter drew.
Where'd you pick that up?
Yeah.
It just came naturally?
Well, I mean, you grew up around it. You don't
I guess I probably, I mean, when you grow up on farms and around animals, you pick up on how it goes down, if you will. There's things are on their ear right now. They're upside down. Right is wrong, wrong is right.
Yeah.
If you have an opinion and it's not approved, then you're
canceled, you get cut off.
Right. Yeah.
It's, we used to, as kids, bullying was a part of growing up.
Yeah.
I got bullied. I'm sure at some point I bullied somebody, so apologies now. But that's just part of growing up. We would call someone gay, not because we thought they were homosexual, but because that was the best insult that a 5th grader could come up with, right? Yeah. And so people have gotten way too soft. And that's another problem is you need instant gratification. The youth, my generation, I think millennial and down, there's no more you work for something. There is this expectation that the world owes you something just for being in existence, and it doesn't. This victimizing yourself, this, oh, life is so hard, woe is me, you know, I've had things so difficult. Sure, you might have had a rough patch here and there, but I guarantee you the kid over there in North or South Korea, or the kid over there somewhere in the Middle East that just would beg for the same education opportunities as you. This whole victimizing yourself, it is a trend, and it's disgusting. And there's this person on social media. I don't follow her, it, whatever. He transitioned in May, March, whatever. And she, whatever, goes on there and says, oh, well, I got banned from a company because I'm transgender. Honey, no, you're not. We got mad because as females, you're trying to tell us what it's like to be a female. You've been a female for less than 10 months versus everybody else who went through a lot of emotional, hormonal changes growing all the way up. So you're not a victim. Quit victimizing yourself. Let's just throw the dead cat on the table. Call a spade a spade. It's disgusting that people don't seem to be able to hold themselves accountable for their actions and their words anymore. You know what? Life is not fair and it ain't never going to be fair. So get over it.
Do you see that a lot in your friends? Maybe not your friends, because we are the sum of the 5 people we hang out with the most.
Yeah.
You know, we are. That's very true. But did you see that a lot in college and high school? Like, I'm going to go through the motions, and then I'll just come out the other side with a 6-figure job, and I'll be good to go, and it's just the way it is. I think a lot of them think that because that's what's sold. Mm-hmm. But also, is it because you can get a burger, a person, a car, and a gallon of milk delivered to your doorstep in about 20 minutes if you want? Is that
laziness?
The result? Well, everything's at your fingertips, and everything is instant. So like you said, there's no waiting, there's no working for something, there's no putting in the hard yards brick by brick, none of that.
Went on a date a few months ago. It was the last one I went on in a while, too. He couldn't go 30 minutes without looking at his phone.
Yeah.
If you can't give someone your undivided attention, and that's why I still carry a pocket steno with me at networking events, not because I can't use my phone to write down notes, but I carry that because I whip out, I write my phone number on there along with my business card. I'm like, this is my personal number. Here you go. Huh. Or, so my sales tactic, what I do, and I think everybody should do this, is when I meet somebody, get to know them. Don't be interesting, be interested.
Yes.
And so I'm deeply involved with the words that are coming out of your mouth. And so if you leave that conversation, you need to know as much as you can from a business standpoint. I would rather sacrifice 90% of that if I can walk away with 3 to 5 personal things. Their kid's about to have surgery. Their daughter's about to have their first baby. Their wife is about to retire or was a teacher. His favorite baseball or football team is the Dallas Cowboys or the Cubs. Guess what I'm going to do? If I see when the Cubs play and they win or they lose, I'm going to send them a text.
Yeah.
Their daughter's birthday, if I know what month it is, then I'm going to mail him a what I would guess is his daughter's size. Like, she's turning 6. I mean, there's only so many sizes you can choose from. Send that to them with a personal written note or something along those lines. And if you don't, and I put it on the steno when I walk away, so I don't look like I was so bored with that conversation. I had to immediately go to my phone. But then on their contact in my phone, I will put in the notes section those things.
Yep, I do the same thing.
And put alerts. And I just don't feel as though there is an emphasis on having that personal human connection, even with sales. I don't really see a whole lot of people talking about adding in that I give a crap about you as a person.
Were you trained to do this, or did you just kind of pick up on maybe that when people use that approach with you, it means more to you. I train all of our people the acronym FORM: family, occupation, recreation, motivation.
There you go. Yeah.
Now, if I'm at a bar and someone gets all the way to, I'm having to explain to them my motivation, I'm probably never going to buy anything from them. But
Yeah.
family, occupation, recreation, great conversation starter. People really like talking about themselves. So when you are trying to bring value but also close a deal, all you really have to do is ask somebody about themselves, and you can probably get about 30 minutes of a convo out of them. No
Open-ended
problem.
questions.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then you do strike me as someone who actually does care and does enjoy saying, hey, happy birthday to your daughter or whatever. Even if you don't care and you're in sales, if you're not doing that, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You should just go work at Home Depot.
I think if you care, I'm an honest believer that it'll eventually show. That was one of the things I think really set me apart from when I was doing nutrition work. Is I knew what cycles their cows were on. I knew when they were rotating. I knew pretty much as I possibly could. I want to not only be friends with them, just because why not? I mean, they're good people out there in the ag community. I mean,
doubt.
Rock solid people.
Yeah.
But I got invited to weddings, anniversaries,
Really?
6-year-olds' birthday parties. And I saw that, to answer your question, I saw that through my dad. So my dad was a financial advisor, and he got invited to funerals, weddings, all graduations. And it wasn't, like, he's really good at what he does. But I remember riding in the car with him, and he would call somebody and say, hey man, I just saw your mama, or I heard someone talk about your mama the other day. I just want to see, how you're doing, how's she doing, XYZ. And like I said, I don't think that nowadays as many people put a focus on, think about even, all right, so Andy Griffith's show was one of my favorite shows growing
Was
up.
it?
Oh, Andy Griffith, the
You're
Waltons, Bonanza.
You're very old school, aren't you?
Very. And so, but that's what we grew up watching.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Sheriff Andy Taylor go in and Aunt B make something for their next door neighbor whose kid's cat died or something, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. Even a text message, as in for your birthday, everyone can say, oh, happy birthday on Facebook, right? But even getting a text message, you're like, oh, that's special.
Yeah.
Getting a phone call, oh. Yeah. If you get people to even answer the darn phone.
They won't even answer, yeah.
Getting a birthday card, your world just got rocked. Yes. Yeah. And so I don't know if it's laziness. I don't know if it's the self-centered mental mindset people put themselves into. And it's sad, but I hope, my goal is for every client, every producer that I have, whether they're a customer of mine or not, or just an acquaintance, that I genuinely care about them. I care about their family and their well-being. I tell every single one of them, hey, if you ever need help with day work and processing cattle, let me know. And they've taken me up on that. And we have a grand old time. We start busting out the bread in a bottle, and we just have fun.
Get after
and so it's, but that personal relationship just, and I don't know when that shift happened, but it happened somewhere between the 90s and I'd say probably about 2015, 16.
Well, you can, you don't have to ask people how they're doing now. You just look at their social media and they're like, oh, they're doing great.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that great. What am I doing wrong? You know how it goes, right? Did you always think that you'd end up in sales?
No.
Yeah.
So I was anti-sales. I was like,
why?
nope. I wanted to breed cattle, actually. I wanted to sling semen, be AI technician. That's what I wanted to do.
You're out of control, right?
Yeah. And I remember it was Dr. Clark Springfield is the man who was my ag economics professor. He looks at me and he goes, you're going to be in sales. I said, I think you're full of it. I'm never going to be in sales.
Now, is that because, did he think that because you picked up those speaking, interpersonal relationship skills through your FFA stuff?
Just conversation. I don't know what it was about him. I just sat there and talked with him a few times, and
you won him over.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But he, fantastic human. Worked for Cargill for many years. But I was like, I'm never going to be in sales. Well, then I got into nutrition class at school. Dr. Wickersham was my professor, and bless his heart, he got me through a rough patch. That was when my parents split, and I had some other stuff going on, and I was just emotionally a mess. And he was there to help me with my walk with God. He was my person. He actually presented my ring to me, not my parents. He did. And so
Where'd you dunk it?
What did I dunk it in? I think I did Keystone because I didn't like Keystone anyways. So
did you do that at home, or did you do that at one of the joints there? And
so we did a group one, so it was 5 of us, and I did get second place. I did puke afterwards. My dad walked out of the yard over the threshold, and it was immediate regurgitation. But I got a C in nutrition, and I was like, man, I'm never going to be in nutrition. And I've had offers during college to go into nutrition work. I'm like, no, I don't like that. I like like AI. I like breeding. And the first job I had out of college was a salesman in nutrition. And it just kind of goes to show that what I learned fairly early on was I can plan my life 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. But if that's not the path God has and planned for me, like I was supposed to go to Australia and work out there. My visa got declined because of COVID, and I'm looking back on it, he was protecting me. I would have been stuck out there with no family. I would have been stuck there.
Yeah, they got a little aggressive about all that shit too, didn't they?
No way to get back home. Yeah. Would have been probably forced to get the jab, and would have not had the same opportunities as I do here in the States. I ended up moving to the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Beautiful place. Learned a lot in my first outside sales job. If I crash and burn, there's not a whole lot of people out there that knew the same people I knew back home. Sure. It was the way I looked at it. Met some amazing people out there. Outgrew the environment, outgrew the leadership, and in terms of just priorities and moral values. And so I left and then took this job, and I realized when I came here that I needed to put myself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, especially spiritually, on track first. Because I realized that I had all these goals, right? I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to do X, Y, Z in my career before then. I want all these boxes I want to check off. But if I didn't put God first and get my relationship back on track with him, it's like a train. You can clean the train. You can put as much coal in there. You can be going as fast as you can. You can be breaking records. You can be doing all these amazing things. But if you're on the wrong track, heading in the wrong direction, you're eventually either going to crash or you're going to have to slow down to the point where you have to set yourself on the right track and backtrack all of the accomplishments that you just made. And I realized that I needed to put myself first and love who I am and love God and merge those two together before I could do anything. So this job really allows me to have the time flexibility to put into my physical fitness, put into my passions, and discovering and reloving who I am as a person, because I don't think I ever was there. And through college, because you're going through a lot of different things, but I think maturity had a large part to do with that. But it took me hitting my very lowest in Virginia emotionally to realize that I'm nothing. Nothing matters. The stats don't matter. Me being at the top of the company in sales doesn't mean jack squat if I don't have my core values inset and firmly inset first. And so moving back to Texas was a huge blessing. I covered 3 states. I love the snot out of it, but you get to network with those kinds of people. But again, that prioritizing that relationship with God is no longer really, I don't want to say allowed, but it's definitely not supported in the school systems. And so I think that has a part with how people's brains are set up down the road once they get into adulthood too.
Was the faith piece something you grew up with, or is that something that you found? Yeah.
Grew up going to church, checked the block on all that, thought I was a Christian. Right. I was a Christian, but I wasn't living through Christ. It's just like when I'm at the stage where I do want a husband. You can be a godly man, but are you a man of God?
What's the difference to you?
To me, well, if you're checking the box saying, oh yeah, I believe in God, I, go to church every once in a while. Okay, that's great. But when you're having a bad day, what's the first thing you do? Do you go to God, or do you let your mind just run with whatever emotion you're feeling? Do you thank God? The first thing I do every morning is read my Bible, and it's hard. It's not easy. And there's not every day that I do that. I fail as a Christian every single day, but I at least try, and I acknowledge that. So there is a difference between being a godly man and a man of God. I want someone who's going to walk with me with God. I want someone who's going to put God first before me. I don't want to be before God. Absolutely not. Because then my future children are going to see that, and then what you're basically teaching these kids is put earthly things before the Lord. And I don't believe in that at all, because that's the way I grew up. And it took me a second to realize that that's a lot of the frustration and a lot of the drama, a lot of the just down in the dumps type of feelings would go away if you had your priorities straight. But you have to learn that on your own. It's not something you can teach somebody. It's not something that you can make somebody do. They have to want it.
Was your realization maybe that your faith walk was not what it needed to be, something that came to your attention when your parents split up? Was that really what put that into perspective for you, where you realized you needed something maybe more real?
That started it, I think. And then it wasn't until I lived in Virginia that I was actually trying to get a horse into a trailer. We had been working, and we were both tired. It was just me and her. And this trailer I had borrowed it. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't a trailer that was that comfortable to ride in, but it was a way to get back home. And she's exhausted, I'm exhausted. I'm trying to get her into the trailer. She will not load. And I'm pulling, and I'm trying, and I'm talking sweet to her. I'm sitting there with some food trying to get her, and she'd get one step in and then back up. One step in and then back up. And at this point, I was emotionally all over the place, mentally not in the right headspace.
Homesick, maybe a little bit?
No, not really. I was just I made the decision of getting a relationship, and that was not a healthy one at all.
People suck, Emma.
They do.
I'm telling you.
There's a lot of great ones out there, but the great ones are hard to find. But my manager was not very kind to me. I had producers who were being inappropriate with me. And so I just sat there and I realized that I was God and that mare was me. He's like, you're tired, you're exhausted. If you just follow me, if you just trust me and you get into this trailer, we can go home. You're going to get fed, you're going to get watered, you're going to get a bath, you're going to be taken care of. I was trying to take her home. But she was so scared and she was just so unsure, and there's so many distractions going on around her that she would not get in that trailer. And I realized that God was just trying to do the same thing for me. He's like, I get one foot there, we go in the right direction, and then I get distracted and Satan would win. And I would just be like, oh, well, this awful thing happened, I wouldn't necessarily blame God, but I'd forget he existed. And the good things would happen. And I'd forget to thank him. And he was just not at the forefront of my mind anymore. And I just sat there and I started bawling in that trailer in Blacksburg, Virginia, Elliston, Virginia. There's cattle yelling, screaming over here. And I'm just sitting there with this horse. My horse is just like, I don't know what your malfunction is. Like, you're just crying in a trailer. I'm going to eat that grass right there. But that was kind of my realization that I needed to change a lot of things. And 2 weeks later, found this job, got it, and then moved here. And how happy I've been. Yeah, I have my bad days. Everybody has their bad days. Sales fall through. People are jerks. Shit happens. But how happy I am compared to and opportunities and the small blessings I took for granted it's completely changed since I made that realization and called myself out on it.
Did you start, have you always been a big reader? You said you were reading that book. about education? Is that something that then kind of took off after you had that moment? Did you start reading things that helped change your mindset and perspective? And if so, what's maybe one of the best books you've read in the last few years that you'd recommend to people who maybe they're on the same emotional or spiritual journey that you are?
Yeah. So first thing I did is cut out pretty much all of Netflix, and like I don't have a TV in my house. Well, I've got a TV, but it doesn't have. It's got Amazon Fire Stick in it, and I've turned it on maybe once in the past few months. I think that you need to constantly grow emotionally or spiritually and mentally, because people can take away the money in your account, they can cut off your limbs, they can destroy your family. The two things that they can't take away, what's in here and what's in here. And so if you're constantly growing and strengthening up here and here, especially what's in here first, no one can stop you. And so some of the books that I've divided up, I always read my Bible and always learning new things about my Bible. So that's like the first thing I always tell people is get yourself if you're starting, get a study Bible. There's little prompts and little explanations and things in there that really help. I pray before I read.
What's your favorite version?
I don't have one. I read I've got several Bibles in different versions because what King James may not make sense than the version of the NIV.
Yeah.
So
I think the Living is soft.
Yeah.
I used to be obsessed with the Amplified. You ever read the
I
Amplified
have not.
Bible?
I have not.
It's great. It's like two Bibles together.
Really?
So every verse is about twice as long because it's got all these
duplicating it.
It's
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's the thing nowadays. I realize that it's not just about your walk with God and understanding His Word, but making sure that you're not following these false prophets, especially on the TikTok and the social media. There's a lot of verses that get taken out of context. So understanding what's being said. Yeah, that one little phrase might sound good, look great on a t-shirt, but if you read the whole verse or the whole chapter, you're like, that is not what they're saying.
Yeah.
So, and that comes from looking at a church home. I have left churches because of that.
So you're pretty stubborn.
I am
Headstrong.
open to perspective. Oh,
Yeah?
I'm German, of course. Of course. The sky's not blue, it's teal. Yeah, no, it's always been stubborn, but being willing to listen is a big one, but just knowing what's true and what's false. And it takes I've followed some people that I really later realized was not accurate, not true at all. So if you're starting that journey, you have to be open and receptive, but just know it's okay not to know, but realize what's really going on. You've gotta just, especially nowadays, like the TikTok, I've seen verses in Bible studies being taken out of context, and it's a slippery slope. Like The Chosen. The Chosen is a TV show, and I haven't watched it. But the first season, I guess, season 1 or 2, great. Christians loved it. Well, the trailer came out for, I think it's season 3. I don't know if it was season 2 or season 3. Well, he comes in and the guy playing Jesus says, I am the law of Moses. No. That's from the Book of Mormon. That's not from the Bible.
You know where The Chosen was shot, right? Where they shot. Most of it is at all the LDS sets.
Yeah.
That's who
the
lent them
two
all
people
the sets and
are
everything.
the majority shareholders of that, or directors of that
Right.
deal are Mormon.
Yeah.
So you've got to be careful.
Well, I think everybody's got to be their own best advocate when it comes to personal growth, right?
Yep.
So if if fitness is part of it, which it sounds like it is part of your personal growth journey, you can be following along with somebody. Maybe they're a running coach or a nutrition coach. Well, what if what they're saying just doesn't really work for you? Well, then you've got to be able to recognize wheat for wheat and chaff for chaff. Maybe you take from them what they're strong about and right about, but you leave with them what you maybe disagree with, and you're looking over here I think that's super important. The whole being your own best advocate when it comes to your spiritual growth, your physical growth, your economic growth is very important. I think a lot of
Very.
people want that easy button.
Yep.
And they just kind of want to mail it in. I think for a lot of people who trusted the government, maybe the last 2.5 years has been a big eye-opener.
Yes.
You can't just blindly say, oh, they got me. I'm good. If anything bad happens, I'm good. No,
They
they
want
ruined
that.
your small business. They transferred all the wealth. They scared the fuck out of you so they could control you. And if you don't understand that, then that's on you.
Yeah.
the-
They want you to blindly follow them and believe in them.
Yeah, the disturbing thing about spirituality and the religious piece is that there is such an ability for those people who are saying things, whether they're interpreting from the scriptures correctly or incorrectly, according to your belief system or mine. It's way easier for them to get their message out there than it ever has been. And if you've ever noticed, people really gravitate toward what they want to hear. So, for example, the prosperity gospel is big. Your Joel Osteens of the world.
Yeah.
And you just sitting there listening to it going, no, brother, this isn't a
not
get
what they
rich
say.
quick scheme, man. This is
So important.
yeah, I grew up in the church. My dad was a preacher, so I've got different feelings about all of that. I've read the Bible all the way, cover to cover, somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 or 40 times. We used to do that growing up, memorized
Wow.
books of the Bible,
See, we
all of
never did
those
that.
things. Yeah. I just think that the relationship that you have with God or your higher power or the universe or whatever you think it is yours, because you get one life. And when we all look around and we're like, hey, you should be doing this because I'm doing this, or we look at another person and go, wow, what they're doing, maybe I should be doing that. When you can really dial in, like it sounds like you have, you feel a sense of maybe you're happy, but maybe it's coming from more, from a deeper joy that you have now that maybe you feel freer. Maybe you feel like you're back on the
Yeah.
right track, like you said.
Spiritual satisfaction
Yeah,
first.
there's
'Cause
something deeper about
Yeah.
having your own spiritual journey than something that you open in a box or that you watch on a box.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Because, about a year and a half ago, right now, I'm in 7 weddings this year alone.
The fuck?
7. Well, everyone's getting married.
You got lots of friends?
I do not. They just all decided to get married, and I told
in 7.
I told
Man,
people, if you want to get
full-time
married
job.
this year, you get to choose from the bridesmaid colors. You don't get to pick your own color. I'm tired of this, but no. So
You get to wear your hat in every
no,
one
they
of them?
no.
Not allowed?
I do break out the tennis shoes. They're the infamous lilac colored tennis shoes. I whip off the heels and I put the tennis shoes on when we go
Okay.
dance. And the photographer, for whatever reason, is obsessed with it.
There you go.
Got one more wedding that they'll probably make their appearance and they'll probably retire.
Yeah.
But I used to feel left out. Everybody was in these long-term relationships and getting engaged, married, having kids, and it's like, dang, I want that so bad. That's just not the way I look at it now. Back then, I was like, what the heck? Like, I can't find my person. The ones I think I find end up being jackwagons or they're just not a match for me. And I realized that not only was God working on me to get to this point, but he's probably working on my partner, and he's teaching me how to love my future husband, just like I'm hoping he's teaching my future husband how to love me. Lord knows he's going to have his hands full.
Yeah.
So it's, my dad can contest to that, but
Yeah, you seem like a bit of a handful for sure, but that's a compliment. You should be. You should be your own self,
your own person.
Being authentic is important. I think my mom gave me some of the best advice growing up because I'd always be like, man, I can't find a girlfriend. Everybody else has a girlfriend. And she'd be like, you just got to focus on your goals.
Yep.
And then someone's going to come right up alongside of you. That's how
Yep.
it's going to be. I have always found that when I'm looking around and I'm trying to find, then I'm off track and I'm really double frustrated because I'm lonesome and I ain't getting nowhere.
Yeah.
So if I can dial in and just keep blazing forward, and sounds like you believe in living a purpose-driven life,
It's also another good book,
Yeah, it is. It is.
Purposeful Life.
That's Rick Warren, right? Yeah.
Yes, yep.
Talk about a guy, he's gone through his his trials and tribulations, hardcore. Didn't his daughter, believe his daughter died of a drug overdose or something along those lines?
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, tragedy hits everyone everywhere all the time. That's why that whole woe is me mentality, that victim mentality, which I think more than anything, that's come to light as the real pandemic.
It's disgusting. People don't have confidence in themselves, so they bring other people down. And a friend of mine, or a former friend of mine, talking about outgrowing people and things like that. I think people are supposed to be in phases of your life. Not everybody's going to be there for the whole thing. And I had to come to terms with that.
Yeah, that's tough to realize when you're young, man.
It is.
For sure.
But I realized, I was like, man, that was not a great influence to have around. But anyway, this particular person tried out for American Idol and made it. And they asked for this person's story, and she told them. And then they stopped the interview. They said, okay, yeah, but what mountains did you have to overcome? What trials and tribulation did you have to go through and persevere through to get here? And she goes, I mean, I've been pretty blessed. They cut every positive thing that she said outside of, oh, I'm so blessed to be here, except for the part where she struggled with a diagnosis that she had. And she didn't want to tell that, but they pried it out of her for the woe is me.
Right.
And it is...
That's the formula.
It's everywhere. I don't watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
I listen to some podcasts, but they're all either market-based, educational-based, the people that I choose to follow or, like you said, surround yourself with. I've got three. That's it. Close friends. Everyone else, I'd say we're friendly or acquaintances, like I've been in their weddings or things like that. But all three of them are entrepreneurs. All three of them have strong core faith values. All three of them are just God-fearing Christians that would do anything for anybody at a drop of a hat. They all have multiple businesses. They have their own patents on things. They all are just hustlers. And I've noticed since I changed and came to peace with the fact that these people were great, the memories are awesome, but I have to let that relationship go and focus either on this one or allow these to nurture it to grow. Life has been better decisions from a financial standpoint have been made because now I have somebody that says, hey, you have an LLC, I have an LLC. How did you do this? Okay, well, we did this with this business, but our other business, we did X, Y, Z. Having mentors, having people that are just positive influences around you, it's okay to outgrow people. And I think that's a really hard thing to accept. I know I did. But, and it starts from, like you said, the change, it's not popular. Yeah. Being independent, being confident, being comfortable with who you are, being Christ-centered, being strong, and wanting to always grow yourself from a knowledge and mental standpoint. It's not popular. The TV shows don't praise it. The cartoons don't take. Yeah. And you can see that shift. And there's not a TV show out there that I'm aware of that has been released within starting up the last few years that I think I would invest the time into watching.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think you should dip your toe into Yellowstone and see
okay,
what you think.
So so I worked in the cutting horse industry for a while in college, too. And I will say that the Yellowstone and the 18 whatever deal, it actually, so the 4-6s had their Return to the Bermuda sale. It was one of the largest turnouts they've had ever. I
heard about that.
Because of this growing popularity of people wanting to be in the Western heritage. You know, we were attacked. I got made fun of for wearing boots to school.
I'm sure.
I would get up.
Have you always been a kicker? You've always worn?
Well, I actually wore a lot of, like growing up, just whatever was comfortable.
Yeah.
In elementary school, wore a lot of just tennis shoes, and I was in athletics, heavy athletics, and I wore men's basketball shorts because the girls' shorts were too short. Right. So I got called a lesbian. Oh, you're a dyke. Oh, you like girls. Again, the bullying thing, right? Sure. We used to call people gay, and now I was being called a lesbian, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. And then started working with cattle more, horses more, and sometimes didn't have the time to change and just
Sure.
show up. So I got made fun of that. And now I see them on the whole social media.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, no,
But-
it's popular now. What got you into entrepreneurship?
The idea of working for myself and
Yeah.
not for other people.
Was this something that you was the idea of entrepreneurship one that you had when you were in high school, or
I even had my own jewelry business. Did you? I did.
Was this again a result of you watching your dad hustle?
No, this one was how can I make money doing something that I enjoyed and also doing something that didn't require a whole lot of input for time because I was doing the 4-H and all the sports.
Right.
I did not have a whole lot of time. And then when you're 12, 15, 13, 14 years old, and I've had a job since I was 14 from a legal standpoint. Legally, I've had a job since I was 14.
Right.
If you catch my drift. And so I decided back then the big chunky rock jewelry with the giant crosses and the women with the chunky highlights and we wore layered on 5 tank tops that was in.
Oh yeah.
I was like, well, let me think. That necklace sold for $50-something. If I bought the stones here and I bought it in bulk at this dollar price, and then I bought all the hardware, so the wire and the clasps, and if I got the good clasps that don't break, that cost me X amount of dollars. So I could make 10 or 15 of these things within one evening or within a day on a Saturday or something.
Sure.
And then if I sold that, then, and I actually used that same email, Coffman Creations.
Yeah.
Was the name. And I
That's
actually use it
awesome.
as my iTunes email password.
That's great.
But yeah, so I started off with that, and then I realized how much I enjoyed photography, and so I ventured into that side, and then I just kept doing that through college, got tired of dealing with people, so then I stopped doing that. But yeah, the idea is by the time I'm 30, 35, I don't have to have a day job. I don't have to be working. I work because I enjoy it, and I'll always work. I'm a workaholic. I can't not work. But I just want to be able to spend time with my future children more than what I received as a kid.
Sure.
And I don't want to send my kids, especially up until a certain age, maybe when they get older, putting them in the public school system for social cues and understanding how to learn in a public environment, I think is probably important, right? The football team and the prom and all that stuff. But as a kid, I do not want some person dressed as a dog that thinks having cat litter boxes in the bathroom is okay, teaching my kids core values and mannerisms. Absolutely not. My kid comes back and starts barking, I'm going to be barking up your front door.
All of that's about the parenting piece of raising kids.
Yeah.
Because again, it's parents who just press the easy button. Maybe they are stressed to the max and trying to make it, and fuel's $5 a gallon or whatever it is, and beef's more expensive than ever, and a gallon of milk because Uncle Joe is $4, whatever.
Yeah.
You still you still have to pass along your values to your children. That can't be someone else's job if you expect for the end result to be something that you're proud of as a parent. And it sounds like that's something that you're very passionate about. Has you didn't expect to get yourself into sales, but having gotten yourself into sales, and now it sounds like you enjoy it. That's one of the most important parts of being an entrepreneur. You got to sell the idea in order to be able to monetize it. What's your follow-up process, and how important is follow-up to your process to closing deals?
It's pretty... I put a lot of emphasis behind it. I think probably more so than maybe some of the other reps around the country. Nothing against them, but I want to make sure that my producers feel that they are a person, not a number. And so, because this program, if I don't ever want to talk to them again, I don't have to. If they have an issue, we have a support line. If onboarding, I have one person that's all she does is get people some, okay, let's enter in cattle for the first time. Let's enter in your ration for the first time. That's her job. So if that person says, yeah, let's go for it, I don't have to talk to them ever again. I don't want that. I want them.
Well, ranchers talk.
Yep. And
producers
so
talk.
Very small world.
So, yeah.
Very small world. And so I call them At least a week after getting on. I give them some time to play with it because they're going to have a lot of questions.
Sure.
Give them some time to play around with it, and then I try to go out there after about 5 to 6 months saying, hey, I'm going to be in your area, even if I'm not. I'm like, hey,
That's how it's done.
I'm going to be in your area.
Yep.
Like, let's go catch lunch. Let's chat. I just want to see how and then if they have the time and if they're willing, then I go out there and just check on them. And then at the end of this year, everyone I got on, I'm going to call them back. And then the guys that have given me references or referrals, or the ones that do a lot of business, so we sell tags too, because there's an animal health side to the program. Yeah. If they do X amount of dollars, I'm going to get something probably custom made for them, like their ranch name branded on it or something, just as
those tags
thank
are
you.
Those doing like a bio track of the animal.
Nope.
Is it like a Nuva ring or whatever those are called? That people, what are those called? No.
No. This is
That's not it.
Is it the Nuva? The Nuva ring is that's birth control.
Yeah, that's.
What's the ring Dr. Michelle was talking about? Sohill? The Aura ring.
That's it.
The Aura.
Something like
I don't know. You wear that instead of like whoop. You know what whoop is? You wear a whoop bracelet and it'll tell you how your sleep
Aura
was.
ring, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, wrong brand. You were talking about slinging semen earlier,
Yeah,
so I think I'm good to go. If I
not into me, that's for darn sure.
Jesus Christ.
Sorry, we're a little blunt here.
Praise the Lord.
No, this is an electronic tag. So the old version of this would be a thing called an 840 tag. It's a button tag. It's a button that we put into their ear, and you take a wand at the shoot side. So when they catch them, you take the wand. It electro scans. It's like a barcode almost. It electric scans, and then I know that animal, and then whatever data I associate that with. A lot of times, historically, you would just enter in that number in a system and manually put in the data. With our tags, now you can also keep using the wand if you want to, and then we charge a bucket price or how many cattle you run through, because we have to pay for the interface, so we have to have you pay for the interface. But the tags are similar, but instead there's a plate that mounts above the chute, so that animal gets caught. That plate, while you're getting the drugs or doctoring or you're preg checking or putting implants in, while you're busy working, that system scans that tag. That system then talks to the scale head, which then the scale head talks to the iPad, and it will tell you who they are, what group or lot they're from, how long they've been there, what their total weight gain is, what their average daily gain is, what their cost of gain is, all of their medical history, and then it will also compare their weight to the rest of the group. So
obviously this is increasing the profit line, the profitability of your producers, your clients, but wouldn't this also make it easier for them to prove their business model, to sell their business in the future for 2, 3, 4, 5x, whatever, because they have all of the
So
all
that's
this data. Is that playing into it with some of your clients?
Yes, absolutely.
Like maybe they started this production outfit and they planned for their sons or daughters to take over, but their sons or daughters aren't interested. And instead of just running the thing till the wheels fall off and they die on the tractor, they want to figure out how to sell the business some way. That's to do that, you've got to be able to value the business.
There's that part of things, selling your cattle, and then we are launching the cow-calf versions called Performance Ranch, and that gets into the weeds. It ties in genetic information if you want to put that in. You don't have to. It tells you calf crop performance, so that calf may look thrifty when it hits the ground, but are they being as feed efficient down the road as maybe another genetic pairing? It'll tell me down the road once we get those animals.
It's tracking their biomechanics, like how they're moving?
No, so like breeding wise, so every time you run that animal through the chute, like those calves, and you say, oh, this calf weighs, I don't know, about 85 pounds, whatever. You put that into the system and it keeps,
so you can watch development.
Yep, and so when you run that animal through the chute, it'll tell you how feed efficient they are based on your inputs.
Got it.
So the idea is not only for you to make better management and breeding decisions, based on where you are and your location and your program. But now you can go and take that information and now come to the feed yard or whoever's buying your cattle and say, they're going to get a better dollar for their animals. Because if I'm buying from Joe and I'm buying from you, and you have all this information of genetic testing, carcass evaluation tied in with your management data, you just gave a round of vaccines to your calves 2 weeks ago. Joe, I don't know who they are. The calves look good. I'll buy his cattle.
You can't prove it. Yeah.
But then I have to go in and I have to mass treat everybody with vaccines or implants, and you already did that for me. So I'm going to give you more money for your cattle because you're saving me, 60, 70% on just medical input costs alone.
Sure.
So the cattle industry is a beautiful and amazing industry. But where we can improve is the communication between the cow-calf and the feedlot to the packer. Mm-hmm. And that's where the packer's the one that's charging the beef prices, not us. Beef cattle are about the same. The rise in cost that you see at the retail market is from the packer. And so, anyway, allowing that communication to be more efficient between all sectors will really allow for more efficient, more sustainable, and the idea is to have a better product on the rail.
Have you noticed any type of have you bumped up against that you're a girl in a man's industry type thing? And
all the time.
How are you able to gracefully kind of navigate that challenge to where then you kind of, when people throw, especially old school dudes are throwing that at you, they want to probably see more than anything how you react to that. What's your response to that? How do you get around that?
Yeah, so being a female in sales and especially agriculture, I anti-feminist movement, that's where I stand. I think women have more rights and have more support than they ever have had before. I don't think there's a lot of discrimination in a lot of fields, but the agriculture sector is one of those that is a little bit behind the power curve when it comes to that. It's a dance. It's a dance. So I have to make sure that you are taking me seriously. Your eyes are up here. We're talking intellectual conversations. Well, there's not much to look at, but it's okay. But I have to make sure that your wife knows. So if the wife is there as a female, I will make eye contact with her and talk to her more.
Sure.
At her more than I will you. I know you're the decision maker, and 90% of the time you are the decision maker, but I'm going to talk to her just in case that she's the decision maker. Mm-hmm. Also, I'm going to try to get her to laugh. I'm going to try to get her to open up, ask her questions, because if she feels comfortable with me, trust me, I am not interested in your 86-year-old husband with no teeth and 8 chins. Like, I'm not interested in him. Hey,
lots of ranchers are lean. What are you talking about with this 8 chin stuff?
Okay, Kenny Chesney is not a rancher. What you see on the NR, what you see on the
5'6".
Yeah, what you see on the Cavender's cover of their magazines is not what they look like. I promise you.
The toothless part, for sure, true, for sure.
So
yes.
I have to make sure that they're comfortable with me, because if they're not comfortable with me, I'm not going to get very far. Then comes the whole conversation of proving my intellectual ability.
That you know what you're talking about.
So you have to be stern. So there's a fine line between coming off as a bitch but being stern,
Sure.
being funny but not flirty. And I have to kind of drop the seed that, hey, I have worked for major cattle companies. Hey, I have day worked. Hey, I have processed cattle, workhorses, been covered in shit at 3 o'clock in the morning, pushing calves through weaning. Hey, I have been running sheep through and got kicked in the face. I mean, you have to demonstrate, without making it seem like you're cocky, that you have experience. Once they say, okay, like, you have the experience, you have the education, and now I feel comfortable with you, my family feels comfortable with you, then you can move forward. Versus if I was a dude, I don't have that equipment, so I can't completely relate to that. But from the outside looking in, it looks like it's a lot easier straight path versus pinging back and forth. But if you don't set yourself up that way, I learned that in my last job. If I don't set myself up that way, I will lose contact with that customer, or I will never hear from that customer again. Not because anything I did or said, but because of maybe insecurities, or maybe it's something going on at home that I'm not aware of. Or it's just the fact that it's just like some men hate when their wives talk to another man, even if it's just in a casual conversation.
Yeah.
I like to think I have more confidence in myself, and then one day my partner,
Right.
than to worry about that.
Yeah.
But
It's a very real concern.
it is.
Has the Texas A&M network helped you greatly up till now, and do you anticipate it'll help you as you continue to build your brands moving forward?
Yeah, so it definitely helped me get my start. The guy that told Dr. Springfield that told me I'd be in sales, I laughed at him. Next thing I know, I'm calling him saying, hey, I think I'm going to take this job with this nutrition company. Oh, well, I know that guy. Let me talk to him real quick.
Wow.
Got a direct interview with the guy.
Cool.
So I got my first job that way. Anytime you meet an Aggie, of course, it's, oh, what year did you graduate?
Right.
Oh, 85. Okay. Wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
I think it'll continue. The Aggie Network's always growing, but I've realized it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the what you know can only help you. But if you know more people, it's just the people with like the famous last names.
Yeah.
If everybody knows who you are, oh my gosh, they are just, oh, hey, how's your daddy doing? Oh, hey,
Right.
hey. But if you're a nobody, you have to put in the effort, and you have to put in the elbow grease in to make sure they know who you are.
Are you cold calling some of these producers, or
kinda.
most of who? Or is there some cold calling, but a lot of referral?
A lot of referrals, or I just meet them someplace.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, is you go to the conventions, you go to where the cattlemen are. The trade show's not where you make most of your clients. It's the bar afterwards.
Right.
And so I'll get a whiskey Coke without the Coke,
Yeah.
or without the whiskey, and I'll get them the whiskey Coke. So they're all letting loose, having a great
Right.
time. They start opening up about who does what and who's who, X, Y, Z. And they're like, oh, you're buddies with them now, right? You're drinking
Yeah,
buddies with them.
right.
But I'm stone cold sober, and I'm there working and putting in contacts and doing research until 5 o'clock in the morning, while they are just knock the snot out.
Right.
And at 8 a.m. they're dragging.
Yeah.
So I've begged my my boss multiple times. I'm like, send me to all of the conventions, send me everywhere, because especially this program's so new to the southwestern part of the country. It was made in Iowa, so almost every person that you meet in Iowa has either heard of it or has the program.
Yeah, is that just because they've got more the beef production? I'm not talking quantity, but it's in Iowa, Nebraska. It's in certain pockets
Yeah.
of those states. I think those communities are maybe they talk more than the Texas community does, because it's a little more spread out here.
I don't know. They're a little they're smaller up there for sure. And this
Yeah.
program was established up there. So when you got to think about it, it was made about 5-6 years ago. For 2 of those, they were a startup, and then they sold to Zoetis. So Zoetis technically owns the company, but they have they're still separate. They still let us do our own thing. We can't share contacts, X, Y, Z. But they spent all that time just trying to grow that business. Well, they're going to be in the Iowa, Nebraska, Dakota kind of area. I mean, that's where they do the majority of their business for those 2 years, because they couldn't afford the flights out to Texas. You know, phone calls are great, but they couldn't afford a sales rep here, a sales rep there. Like, we still don't have anybody covering Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, and we're slowly expanding, but we have to see it. They needed to see a need, and they're all from Iowa. None of them are from Texas. And so
And you handle West Texas specifically?
Abilene West, Oklahoma City West, and all of New Mexico.
Okay. All right.
So, and so that's why I think that they just spent so much time there. And there's good folks up there, but since they had the financial, that's why they sold to Zoetis, is so we could have a financial backing to expand the engineer side, to expand the customer support, expand sales reps. And so to Texas, Ben Rogers is my East Texas rep, and he's only been here for about 1.5 years. and that was the first him. And then there's one girl before me. Now she works for a pharmaceutical deal. That's been her, from what I understand, her goal from the get-go. So she was here, I think, maybe a year. So we're going our year 2 of having reps in Texas.
It sounds like you've got quite a bit of autonomy, independence, like what you do every day. You're not going in the office, clocking in, so on and so forth. The way that you're able to organize your day, manage your time, the discipline with which you carry out everything you're supposed to do every day, has your evolution there in terms of your discipline, how you handle your day, has that grown quite a bit in the last couple of years? Like how you handle your mornings,
You have to.
all of what you're doing, then your fitness regimen, and then your evening routine, all of that. That's
You
pretty
have
important
to.
too. Yeah.
Absolutely. You cannot grow if you're being stagnant, and growth is uncomfortable. Yeah, making cold calls, they're not my favorite thing in the world, but I have to think about the worst thing they can say is no.
Yeah.
Worst thing they can
100
say is no.
no's means you're 100 no's closer to a yes.
Exactly. And I think that people get into their own head sometimes. I know I used to. It's like, man, I really don't want to make that call. I really don't want to call that guy. I really don't want to do this.
That's when you just have to just do it right
You
then.
have to.
Yeah, procrastination is like fear. It grows on itself. It's one of those things. What is being native to Texas and the Texas attitude and the state of Texas mean to you as a Texas native?
It's a good one. A lot of pride. We are one of the few states in this country that is sustainable in a lot of different ways. We've got citrus, we've got row crops, we've got beef, poultry, pork. I mean, but then again, I wanted to, as soon as I left, and even within college, I traveled, worked in Florida, worked in Australia, ended up working in Virginia, went to Missouri, California, Oregon, not because I wanted to move there, but because I think you need to have an understanding and appreciation for other states and countries with how they run their operation in order to fully know what you have back home.
Yeah, how good you have it.
Well, I went to Virginia,
In the great
and
state.
their 4-H program was non-existent, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't understand this, because in Texas, they did like, I don't even know how many.
The 4-H program here is
millions
like
of
high school
dollars.
football here, though.
Yeah.
It's built out, man.
Yeah,
People take it very seriously.
exactly. So it's one of those things that you don't realize how good you got it until you leave, and then you
Yeah.
come back, and it gives you a perspective. So Virginian cattle don't do well in Texas. And now I know why, because I was out there. Same thing with Missouri cattle and Georgia cattle. And so it's interesting, once you've been out there, you have a better understanding, and then you understand where the two dots, you can connect the dots that other people may not have.
If you were giving advice to younger gals who are getting into sales or entrepreneurship, could you kind of give a summary of maybe some advice you'd give them if you were sitting at a bar talking to somebody who's saying, maybe they're saying to you what you're saying to some of these people who are mentoring you, like, hey, how'd you get where you are?
Yeah.
What, like maybe just a couple short, sweet things you could say. What would you say?
I would say you have to work twice as hard. You need to be taking twice the effort to do what maybe someone, like especially with men, again, not trying to be sexist, but you have to work twice as hard to be seen at the same level. You need to have twice the experience to be seen as the same level. And a lot of the ways you can do that is by reading how to win over friends and influence people.
Yep.
48 Laws of Power. Be careful on that one,
Look
because
at
it
you.
promotes some lying, and I don't.
Robert Greene.
Yeah. So
Have you read
48 or the 4-Hour Work Week, things like that.
Yeah, have you read Mastery by Robert Greene?
I have not yet.
I would check that out. And then The Art of Seduction, which is not about
Yes.
getting
No.
laid.
Yep.
It's awesome. And then
Yes.
his newest one called The Daily Laws.
Yep, so I've got
is
those on my docket. Right now I'm
awesome.
reading The Mathematic Principles of Physics by Isaac Newton.
Okay.
I saw it in Costco,
You know-
and I don't know why, but I bought it, and
You
I
just-
refuse to let the $18 go to waste.
Yeah, I bet that's a dry read. You know,
It
the
is.
48 Laws of Power is outlawed in prisons and jails, right?
And I can see why.
Yeah.
I would
It's
be
a
careful.
fascinating read.
Be careful with it because it's a slippery slope and you can lose your walk with God pretty fast and prioritize the dollar over God. But,
But it helps you. It sears, just like you're branding a steer. It sears the naivete right out of you.
It does.
You're like, whoa.
Yes.
This person is playing me.
Yes.
You recognize it right away. I recommend that book to almost everyone I meet.
And find a good mentor and watch people. The thing, I think Jordan B. Peterson said this, and I love him to death, and that is one person I would love to meet relatively soon if you're ever seeing this.
Sohail, you want to do your Jordan Peterson impersonation as we close this
No,
up?
it's okay.
I sent him
know now.
Did you listen to Jordan Peterson's podcast? Did you listen to the one with Dennis McKenna last week? That plant medicine?
No, I haven't listened to that one yet.
Psychedelics? It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Now, there's a Netflix show that came out with psychedelics, and that opens up a whole different conversation.
The one about your mind?
Yes.
Yeah.
But, no, it's one thing I heard, and this changed the way I talk with people and interact in social settings, is if you're talking and no one's listening to you, shut up and watch and listen. And man, you learn some stuff fast, but you've just understanding. One of the big things I do, especially when I'm first meeting somebody and it's just kind of not the conversation, it's kind of cold, is I start replicating their body language.
Yep.
And I didn't learn that until later on in life. So it's just, there's a lot of different things that you can do. You gotta never let your guard down, ever.
Yeah, and I think you have to realize that we're also very different, but we're also very, very the same. One thing Robert Greene says that I tell all of our people is people judge you, and their opinion of you will probably never change based on the first 10 to 15 seconds of when they meet you. And so if you arrive with passion and energy and intention, no matter if you are the tallest, the shortest, the fattest, the skinniest, the prettiest, the ugliest, if you connect with that person who you're either trying to do business with or date or sell to or just be friendly with.
Yeah.
If you are heartfelt, they can feel that right away. If you're a dick or a douchebag, they can feel that right away. And that first impression, you never get a second chance to make a first impression true. But it's very hard to change that once someone has made that decision. That happens so fast. You know this in sales, how you arrive when you meet someone for a face-to-face that tells the whole story, and it's almost irreparable if you show up hungover or you act like you don't want to be there or you do all the talking and none of the listening. Emma, it's been awesome to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, it really has. Can't believe we've gone this long. That's badass.
Is it
seems like
really?
we just started. How can people track you down on social media? Because that's where we connected.
So Instagram, E, it's all spelled out double, and then there's another E, Ranch Imaging, TikTok, E Ranch, and then the company Performance Beef is on Facebook, Instagram, and even on Snapchat. So Snapchat's on Fridays. We actually have real life producers, clients showcase their operation, showcase what they're doing and how they use the program. So add them on Snapchat too.
I mean, it's pretty amazing how technology is changing the game.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Things that you don't even think about, and you're like, wow, I can make a lot of decisions off that. So
Thank you. Appreciate you. Absolutely. Thanks a bunch. That was awesome. Emma has a ton of energy. I think that the future generations are in good hands. She's a very hard worker, very personable gal. Find her on TikTok. That's where she's growing the most. She's also on Instagram. And if you need to connect with her, you can also DM me. I'd love to know what you think about the podcast as well. I do the podcast because exchanging energy with other passionate people who live a do-it-yourself fearless life is something that I'm passionate about, and I love sitting down with other passionate humans because life is all about getting after it, man. It's about being passionate about something. It's about doing things that turn you on, man. I'm not just talking about that way. I'm talking about light your fire, that get you going, that get you out of bed in the morning. I'd love to know what you think about the podcast as well. Drop a comment below. Definitely be sure to like, subscribe, the whole 9 yards. And if you know somebody that you think I should have on the Jess Marshall podcast, hit me up in the DMs on Instagram or TikTok at Jess from the Northwest, and we'll see y'all next time.